What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eickman. Together, we're about to embark on an inspiring journey. Our community thrives on the wisdom of insightful leaders that are right here in our backyard. And we're bringing their expertise to your ears. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your guide. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence.
What's up, everybody? We're here for a special episode of the Homegrown Hustle. I'm here in my hometown, Brooklyn Park, meeting with, I like to call him a local legend, Matt Streeter. He's one of the Streeter trifecta over here. They manage a bunch of great properties locally. We've done work with them for Abracadabra. So Matt, I really appreciate you taking the time, letting us come meet you here in the boardroom and talk a little bit about Streeter. You guys run a fantastic operation. Thanks. Everything that we've seen aligns really closely with what we do at Abracadabra. So let's dive into it. So when I learned a little bit about your backstory, the origin is from a series of liquor stores, right? And then transitioned into commercial real estate, property management. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. First, great to be here. Yeah, so back in the 70s, basically, my dad, well, let me go a little further back. He was an accounting teacher at St. Cloud State and did some teaching and stuff. Eventually, he opened his first liquor store when he was about 25 years old, and that was in Brooklyn Park. Back then, Brooklyn Park, a little bit different. It was like a growing city.
There were cornfields and stuff still?
Yeah, but it was definitely a growing, vibrant kind of city and everything. And so at 25, he got a big break from Lloyd Inglesma, from Inglesma Construction, like the big company and stuff. Gave him a big break, and he opened that store where he did very well there, to the point where we were in like the big Village North shopping center, and eventually moved out of there and actually had a freestanding big liquor store right out in the kind of parking lot area. But with that, we had the ability to expand the number of liquor stores we did. New Hope, Shoreview, Arden Hills, Minneapolis. And in the process of doing that, you work with the cities a lot to get your first liquor license approval. It's very strict. You have to go through a lot of hoops to kind of get that done. So you get to know these cities. You get to know the planning commission, the city council, all of that. Well, in the process of doing that, and these cities, my dad being around them a lot, other real estate companies, bigger companies, would see Ken, my father, up there working and getting, obviously these liquor licenses approved and all this stuff, and knew we had a good relationship with these cities. So they started to reach out to him to help them get their projects approved. If they had, if they were running into any issues with the city or felt that they weren't going to get it approved. And he started to get a very good track record with these real estate companies by, helping them get these approvals when they didn't think they were. That eventually rolled on, and we kept our liquor stores. At one point, we were up to 12, including one over in Wisconsin. But in the early 80s is when we decided to kind of go, hey, we're working with these real estate companies, doing a lot of work for them. We know what we're doing. Why don't we just do our own building? Why do we have to keep... So Maple Grove, we did a project called Grove Shops. Now, you talk cornfields. It was like, if anyone knows Maple Grove, there was, now there's the Cub Foods, all the huge downtown. That was cornfields. This was like, our strip center was like one of the first buildings up there. So we did that. And one of the things we would do is we would put our liquor store in there, build the building, and then we'd lease the rest of it up. So we'd have the liquor store kind of as the anchor, and then it'd allow us then to slowly but surely fill up. And those were a little bigger. You didn't have the single large liquor stores like you did in the past. There were just way more popular as far as around like different sized liquor stores. Go ahead if you have.
So you said anchor.
Yeah.
So that's common.
Anchor. Yeah. And when I'm talking about centers, we're not talking about a 200,000 square foot power center where you have, again, a Cub Foods or a Kohl's. They call them power centers. This is your average neighborhood strip center that typically is anywhere from about 10,000 square feet to maybe 30,000 square feet. So when you get like a 5 to 7,000 square foot liquor store in there, that's fairly big as far as to start to kick it up.
And it kind of stabilizes.
Yeah, exactly. If you only have a couple other people interested, you're stabilizing your revenue rate on stuff. So our first few centers that we did, we would put a liquor store in there kind of when we did it, and it made sense. But that just kind of steamrolled where we would continue our service to either landowners. We started working a lot more with not only big real estate companies, but once they started seeing us around the city here in Maple Grove was a big farming community and like the areas around it. My dad was getting approached by a lot of local farmers saying, hey, you appear to know what you're doing. And his joke was, yeah, I'm a good actor. But you appear to know what you're doing. So could you help us? We're getting to the age we'd kind of like to start getting out of our farms. And as cities grow and expand too, the tax base changes. These farmers start seeing stuff being built around them and stuff. So he'd come to us, we started representing those farmers, we'd sell off their property. Well, in lieu of taking fees outright and getting taxed on those fees, we would take land in exchange.
That's a good deal.
So when you're getting land basically for free, and then you're building a building on it, you're saving, your cash flow makes a lot more sense because you're saving a lot more. That was another thing we were doing in order to be able to be putting up multiple buildings at the same time. So.
And it sounds like Ken was your father's name, right?
Yep.
And he's still working. He's
81. He's in at 6 a.m. and he's out of here about 2 o'clock now.
I mean, that's still a pretty good day.
Yeah,
I know people that don't even do that.
We're going to have to change we have to change the locks eventually so he doesn't come.
So it sounds like the organic evolution of the business, it really came from just understanding that there's people behind like the city and your father just understood who those people were and developed relationships over time.
Well, like with your abracadabra business and any business, it's relationships.
Yeah.
And if you conduct yourself in a professional manner and people respect you and know that you're a, for lack of a better term, straight shooter and everything like that, you're gonna gain their trust. You're gonna be able to get stuff done because there's a lot of real estate back, and there still are a lot of people that aren't straight shooters or just think, all right, I just need this big deal, and burn bridges.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that,
they're thinking short
term.
Yeah,
they're thinking short term. If you don't do that, then you're going to continue to have a great relationship, get stuff done. People are going to see that. And you're gonna get, it's not like we were advertising on Instagram and we still don't, it's not like we're doing major advertising for our real estate company. It's people seeing us at these city council meetings, planning commission meetings. And now it's actually nice because they do have it on TV. So people can see it from their homes on TV. But back in the day, it was just word of mouth.
So it feels like smoke and mirrors sometimes if you don't actually know what's going on there. Now that it's on TV, at least
exactly.
the general public can see it. So I can only imagine what it was like back then. I mean,
and then like anything, when we did a lot of, again in Maple Grove, the gravel mining area they called it.
I climbed those mountains a couple times.
So we helped work with them and we put a lot of restaurants in. My dad did the Cub Foods deal and Coles and all that. He was part of that whole big deal. So when you're bringing a bunch of that stuff in, then it was getting to the point where if anyone wanted, whether we had the property or not, anyone wanted to bring anyone into Maple Grove, they would call us anyway. Say, hey, if you don't have the property, who should I talk to? So.
And that kind of still happens to this day, right? Just because you've been established and represent yourself so well.
It's just expanded a little bit to more northwest suburbs. So Plymouth, Maple Grove, Rogers, Coon Rapids. Yeah, it's just expanded. But I know we had talked a little bit. We do still like to concentrate on kind of a certain area, not expand too much, so we can really, with the properties we have that we also manage, we can really concentrate and make sure our tenants are treated fairly, treated right, and we're very easy to get a hold of and all that, and that's very important. And you can expand too much and just your service starts dropping.
Well, the efficiencies that are created when you do that, it allows for a lot of cost savings, and a better tenant experience so that you can keep occupancy rates high. We were talking the other day, you said you had only like couple vacancies.
Yeah,
right?
It's been great.
And it's not like you have 1 or 2 properties. You guys have what, 20 of them?
Something.
And so that occupancy rate being really high, that's good for business. We love seeing that. It's not really like that everywhere, right?
No.
And not in every vertical. You guys primarily are retail for the most part, right? A little bit of office.
Little office, small amount of industrial, but retail's our main.
So what's the thought process behind that? Is that just
There's a few factors. We're lucky to have our properties in good cities. I mean, that's always going to be important. You know, when you have a city that's struggling, you're going to struggle. Even Rogers, we struggled for a while. Now they're finally getting the housing component up there and everything to back up the retail and everything, which is very important. On a smaller level, though, you know, you still see vacancies in Maple Grove. It's keeping your costs down. Your, taxes, insurance, all your garbage pick, all that stuff. And we look at that every year and do our best to keep that down. Whereas, you know, a lot of centers, they're property management companies in Chicago or some national company. They don't care.
Well, and it's got to go through 3 or 4 people to get there. So
they don't care about those costs as much, and then they don't care. You know, I mentioned this when we first started kind of working together. They've come to us and said, we just didn't like our last property management company because they were hard to get a hold of. They wouldn't get stuff done. You guys are out at the, and we tell them, we're out at the center every week. Myself or my brother, and we're out there every week checking on people. We're easy to get a hold of, and you know, we get on stuff for it.
So you have a better relationship with the tenants of your spaces than taking care of the problem they call you about, and making sure that they pay every month.
Yeah, and it's important. It's important to be hands-on like that, as opposed to just, you know, being everything through the computer. And, you know, we like to do a lot by phone call and stuff, but everything when they just send a service call through the computer, 2 days go by, nothing's getting done. Or if you didn't pay rent on time, or there's little issues, you're trading emails, and as opposed to just being able to talk through it and work it out. We do work with our tenants. We know people can struggle. There's ups and downs where certain businesses have busy times, they have down times. And as long as the nice thing about having a good relationship with your tenant, they're going to be a little more open and honest with you too when they're struggling, which helps you work with them as opposed to them just not paying rent and just out.
Yeah, because it costs you a lot more to kick them out.
You start getting attorneys involved. You know, during struggling times, I was spending time down in Hennepin County for evictions, all that. That's not fun for anybody.
No, I mean, but when I was speaking with you, you've got these occupancy, right? But you're not just filling them with people that call because they're calling. Like, you're looking for the right fit for these spaces.
Very important, and that's the difference too between, again, and there's no right way or wrong way to do this. But since we are a family business that's, you know, second generation. Our nephew's just working here now, so third generation. We keep going generation. We're keepers, so the buildings we own outright or we're partners with people on. We have no thought process of ever selling. Now that could always change if just someone throws in a crazy cap rate at you where they're overpaying for it. But there's just no reason to do it. And with that mindset, not only do we buy better products for the building, okay? You're paying for a nicer roof. You're paying for better, as low as like garbage and clothes. You're just doing nicer sidewalk because you know you're keeping it. You're not just spinning it off and selling it right away. With that said, we're taking a certain tenant mix. We were talking briefly, you know, we have a vacancy up in Rogers, but you know, we have a couple medical uses there, haircut uses. We've had people call to do a bar restaurant. We just feel with the parking and all that stuff that a bar restaurant just is not a good mix. And we could have leased it, could have gotten good rent and stuff like that, but it wouldn't be fair. We have another vacancy, one of the few ones we have in Maple Grove, that it's a little older center or whatever that doesn't have a huge amount of parking. So we've been very selective, again, not to have like a heavy use restaurant go in there. And if we have to, you know, adjust accordingly rent or whatever to get a good mix, we will do that to help our existing tenants and just have a good mix because it's important to have a good mix.
Because that space, it's your business to lease to them, but it's advantageous for all of the businesses there, and then as a byproduct, you, the owner manager, if they all are successful, because then the turnover doesn't happen.
Yeah, and if you're a building owner, you guys have like a LLC or however you're set up. If your real estate representative is just there trying to fill it up, sure, they're going to fill it up, and then a year or two later, that bar restaurant is locked into a 10-year lease, and 3 of your other tenants have left because at 7 o'clock on a Friday night, your parking is gone.
Yeah,
because everyone's at the bar, and then you're going, where did our cash flow go? Well, there you go. So you got to think, again, and since we're the ones managing it, leasing it, doing all that, we take that into account. Whereas if it's just bottom line money, an agent might say, I'm just going to lease this. I'll worry about that years down the way.
Because it's like 1 year blinders.
Yeah, total blind.
Is that like kind of common practice in the individuals who are like new in the business where they're just property managing and they don't have this type of ownership?
Yeah, it's new. And then you do have people, I mean, it's a cutthroat business too. We've had tenants from office buildings and retail but sniped. You're constantly getting sniped. People do have, especially national companies, people do know when their leases are coming up, and they get calls from other centers in the area, from big national companies that say, come here, we'll throw $50, $60 TI at you and all that stuff. What they don't understand is, sure, they're throwing a lot of tenant improvement allowance, meaning they're giving them money to help them build out their space. But there's still a ton of costs in a move. You still don't know what their backdoor operating expense costs are going to be. They're going to be a higher rent, all that stuff. So they try and snipe them, and then we just have to, talk them in. But the agent themselves, they don't care because they're not getting a commission from us. If they bring them somewhere else, they're getting a commission. So you're constantly fighting that battle. But again, that's where the great service of property management comes in. When you're like, hey, do you like how we're managing? They're like, you're right. And why do we need to move?
And if you don't, like, you're in a position where you don't need it that bad. So like the right fit and the right business in there, it makes a difference long term, and it makes it smooth sailing to do the due diligence on the front end. So being that it is 2025 in Minnesota, let's talk a little bit about cannabis leasing and how that's going. Got to assume you've got a couple calls over the last few months about leasing.
Tons. Emails and calls. We get calls two to three a week. Emails even maybe more than that. Just, hey, do you have anything? And I will say, this isn't just your Joe and his buddy Ed down in the corner, let's open a cannabis. This is national tenant type places that are probably great, run very efficiently, well run and everything like that. It's just, when you do bring that in, there's just a certain way people look at it or whatever. And we also have current tenants in some of our centers that just straight out in their leases have restrictions against cannabis, certain tobaccos and all that stuff. Doesn't mean we do have a cigar shop that's great in Maple Grove for us, has been there like 20 years. But certain centers have stuff against cannabis or anything like that where we can't do anything. And then I think, again, I'm not an expert on it, but I do feel too there's certain laws in place with mortgages and banks on whether they allow it, if you have a mortgage, whether they can go in and all that stuff. So what we've been finding, because I still talk to some of the agents that are representing them, their best bet a lot of times is a freestanding building. But, periodically they're finding something here or there, just an outright owned strip center. It's just, I don't think they're finding the front line ones. You're not finding space out in front of Cub Foods with the cannabis usually. Whatever. Well, you just don't want that. But there's certain areas where it is good. It's not a bad use, and they pay great rent. They're ready to pay high-end rent if you ever did it. Yeah,
because supply and demand.
And it's, what, it's like anything, back in even cigarette shop, all that back in the day. Give it time. Maybe in 10 years, the whole stigma changes and everyone sees how clean it's, everything like that. And it's treated like a liquor store. And then
that's where it's going to
We could be back having on this podcast in 10 years and you're like, and I could be like, well, we opened a new center and we got a cannabis store in there.
Cannabis as the anchor.
It's one of our anchors. Times change. It's just the views of people, how people look at it.
It's not clear for anybody either right now. Like at the state level,
they did a terrible job. They didn't do the best job.
And then all the banking and everything that's kind of built off of that, it's going
to take time.
It's hard to navigate that and thread the needles. So anybody that can thread the needles, massive opportunity in the early business,
yes,
right? But
definitely.
It sounds like there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through there.
And again, I'm not an expert on it. I think part of it too is, sure, they're going to sign a lease and want to come with you, but they still have a very difficult process to get approved. So you're tying your space up for a period of time while they get through, do all the hoops they have to go through to get that spot approved. So you could tie your space up for 6 to 8 months, and then at the end of the day, they don't get approved for the spot, and you just took your space off the market for 6 to 8 months. That's the last thing you want to do.
Unless they pay for it.
That's and they're not,
So, been in business for like 40 years.
Yeah.
Something I really love about your business is you're working with your two brothers and some generations in both directions, right? But I also work with my two brothers at Abra, and I know it's not always the easiest, but you guys are doing it and doing it really well. So it seems like really healthy. Can you talk a little bit about like...
There's plenty, believe me, there's plenty of screaming. They were screaming this morning. Like, we definitely get on each other's nerves. And maybe it's that it's all boys, that we like water off the back a little bit more. Like literally an hour later, it's like, oh, what were we fighting about? Like, we don't kind of care. But it, I guess you get used to it. You get used to kind of seeing each other every day. A big part of why that is, though, we've had the opportunity to expand many times. We've had a lot of people come to us that said, hey, I'd love to have my license under you. Are you guys expanding? One point we looked at having a construction arm. Real estate, you have to be careful, because everyone under whoever the broker is, I can go off and just do something crazy or a bad deal. Everyone gets in trouble. Ken would get in trouble then and all that stuff. So it is very good structurally, the way we have it set up with just family, because nothing really kind of gets approved until we kind of all talk about it. So you have those backups and that safety net, whereas maybe at the time it seemed like a good idea, but then you go, I can't make a decision anyway. You come back, you talk it through with everybody, and you're like, oh, this makes sense. That was a dumb idea, or we could get in trouble for this. So that is a great thing to have. But as far as getting along, like I said, you're going to argue, but water off the back, so.
Well, and you've been doing it together for so long. Yeah. Like, was that like a plan that your dad talked through with you guys, or was that just another organic thing that came about, like developing our relationship?
So, going way back, so when he did open that first store and we did the freestanding store out, we officed in the back of that store for years. Just small. We shared an office. Me and my two brothers shared an office, which was terrible. And I, for periods of time, my other brother and I were working at the liquor store. So we'd work Friday and Saturday nights. So believe me, we started at the very bottom and kind of worked our way up. But I think I had mentioned to you too that, as we've done buildings and stuff, we've been involved and learned through, as he's gone through it too, going to all these meetings and all that. So organically, we've kind of all grown together and learned. Awesome. And there's never been pressure to stay. You can always be like, you know what, this is not the thing for me. But, Ryan that's working for us now, Jake's son, my nephew, he came in and interned and really started liking it. And like my other brother, Jeff, his son who's down at Iowa, he's interned here one summer. Now he's interning somewhere else, but he says, I want to come work there when So there, by no means is there any pressure to do it, but I think people like just the daily business of it and kind of what we do, and we laugh a ton.
Yeah,
like a lot of
fun is
we BS so much, so that's a big part of it too. So you can't take everything too serious, or you'd go crazy
for sure.
Especially in this business,
the grind,
because you just have, you just have stupid stuff. We have just this year or last year, we had a poor older woman just drive her car right through one of our mattress tenants, and it's all you can do. And on a Friday night, and it's just you're pulling your hair out, trying to secure the space and get stuff done, but you can't get too mad. You just have to.
What's the playbook for that? Someone drives their
So like I mentioned, to any good property management company has a company that they have speed dial that basically deals with floods or instances like that where they're expensive, but they're secure this space for you, at least for like literally it's as bad as you sound. They're just putting plywood over, but they're
That's
securing
all
it.
you need, yeah.
And then the nice thing about those companies is, or if you have like a pipe break or anything like that and they shut it off and get to like vacuuming it up right away, is they usually have pretty good ins with the insurance companies and they streamline it and all that stuff. Now the insurance companies have gotten a lot harder to deal with on this stuff. It used to just be, we understand. Now it's just, they're so anal on everything. It's a way harder process just because they're getting so expensive and they're losing so much money. But to have that, you just have to have that. You have to for those type of emergencies. But 99.9% of the emergencies, we just take care of ourselves. Take care of yourself. You have a vendor list. Abracadabra's on our vendor list. If we get like but you just have a great vendor list that if an individual emergency happens, you have someone you can call. And you always have a couple contractors on call too that can do that stuff.
And having those resources, it just allows that speed to solution.
It's important.
Because that's how you get people to renew leases. When something goes wrong, it's handled the right way the first time.
If they're frustrated with how something or they feel like they got screwed somehow. And we've had a poor tenant, that one that the car went through, they had flooding issues twice before that. If anyone could be mad at us, it could be them because of the stuff they've gone through where they've had merchandise ruined. And they've been with us 20 plus years.
So must be doing something right. Yeah. So if you had to look at your magic ball and tell me what real estate in the northwest suburbs looks like in the next 24 to 36 months.
Well, I with some of the new ramps that have just been done on your way as you head more north after Maple Grove with like St. Michael, obviously past Rogers, and then you get to Albertville and all that stuff. It's just going to keep growing. And part of it I had mentioned earlier, the housing is starting to come in Rogers. I think you're going to see a lot more growth in Rogers. We're getting a lot more calls in Rogers. We sat for a while with some vacancies up there, and now we're getting a ton of calls. I'm constantly amazed how aggressive people still are wanting to start new businesses.
What do you mean when you say you're amazed?
Well, because everyone always, for the last year, everyone's had the fear of inflation scares everybody, or you always hear the media talking about, save your money. We're going to be in for a rough patch, and yet we're getting calls with people that are like, and rates are a big thing. When rates are high, you're borrowing money at high rates, so people aren't opening businesses when they're paying high rates. We're still getting calls. I mentioned to you before we got on here that one of the crazy, I've been getting calls from Turkish coffee places. Like, how random is that? But that's like a new thing.
Keep an eye out.
Sounds amazing.
I love Turkish coffee.
It's a French bakery concept, but it's not just French bakery. It's like a Korean French baker. It's like, okay, that random, but I'm sure there's a demo for that. And so we're just put in a new groomer, nice young girl in her 20s that's just starting her business. So we're getting franchise type people. We're getting small little startup type businesses. Yet we're still getting the national. We've had a couple national food uses call us to try and go into a couple of our buildings too. So it's all over the board, the different levels of people that are calling us.
And you're getting these calls just because you've been around so long. And
well, you advertise. There's local, there's Mincar, there's CoStar. We do a lot on that. We don't. We're old guys, so we're not social media savvy. So we're not on Instagram doing anything like that. But I think what they do, we have signs up, and a lot of times, our company we use for our website does a pretty good job of getting us out there on Google or anything like that when people look up spaces. But again, if people are looking in Maple Grove, a lot of times they're at least reach out to us and see. And the community isn't, I feel like the housing real estate community is a lot bigger than the commercial real estate community, at least in Minnesota. A lot of us know each other and know each company-wise and stuff like that. So we know what companies manage certain properties or whatever. So if we have someone that can't fit it, a lot of times we'll call someone. If it's a company we get along with pretty well and say, we can't fit these people here. Hey, would this work here? And we get the same...
we get treated the same.
Yeah. If you treat other companies well, they'll call and say, these people can't fit here. Could we fit them over at your place?
So I know we're probably going over here. I just got one question. So over the years, you've been working in the retail primarily for 30, 40 years. The businesses that you've seen over the years that are in your spaces, like what are the things that the ones that have been successful and stuck around and you didn't have to turn those over, like what are they doing versus the ones that kind of come and go like a flash in the pan?
That's an easy one, because especially recently, probably a little bit before COVID, but definitely post-COVID, a lot of our tenants, if you have good management, they're staying. We've had tenants that have told us, I would love to sign a 5-year extension. My manager is leaving and I just can't find. So if you have a good staff, now as long as you're a good product, most products, you have good product anyway, but staff is so important for these small business owners. If they don't have a good staff, they can't
do it all.
They can't, because hours of operation, some of our businesses have adjusted their hours of operation, but if they have a good manager, it runs themselves, and they're like, oh, we just had a haircut place we signed for 5 years. They're like, oh, my manager's staying. This is awesome. Yeah, I'll stay for 5 years. She does a great job. Or we had a sandwich shop where, yep, my manager's staying. We can stay for another 5.
Take care of your managers, people.
It's important. It's a big thing for these small businesses. So.
That's good. I was not expecting that as a response, but it makes a lot of sense when you talk it through. So if you want to speak to the camera right here, tell the audience what you'd like them to know. I know you got a couple spaces if you want to touch on those, or just tell them the best way to get in contact with you.
Yeah, if anyone's interested or anyone needs any property management type stuff, commercial-wise, office-wise, industrial-wise. If you're even looking to invest, or if you own property, we get random calls from people that own property way up north, and they're like, can you help us sell it? We'll sell it. We can sell any type of property. So we'd love to help you out with that. Besides that, and the real estate side, we do have some spaces available in the northwest suburbs. If you're thinking of opening a business, even if you're at the beginning, we love to help people. We can point you in the right direction on who you need to talk to start your business, banks you need to talk to, all that stuff. We'd be happy to tell. You can reach out to me by email at matt@streetercompanies.com, or just go to our website at streetercompanies.com.
Yeah, the cell phone number is probably on there, and
he
answers the first ring like
all
every
the information
time. So.
Yeah, and don't believe me. 24 as a property manager, you're answering calls at 2 a.m. So 24/7 is not a lie.
The good ones, the good ones are like that. We work with a lot of property
put
managers.
It on snooze. Yeah.
Or they're just inundated, right? There's so much going on.
Too much for them.
And then red tape makes it slower to be able to solve their problem, so the problem just lingers. And that's what I love about you, is like it's quick, you get it taken care of, and you're on.
We're giving you a yes or no answer quickly, because
All right, so before I let you go, Matt, we got a rapid fire round here, so I'm going to fire a couple questions your way. Just say the first thing that comes to mind. I kind of know the answer to this one, but office or retail?
Retail.
Twin Cities or up north?
Twin Cities.
If you weren't in real estate, you'd be...
personal trainer.
With arms like that makes sense. What's one skill that you wish you had?
Oh, God. There's multiples, but I wish I could surf better.
Same. What's the first thing you do in the morning? It's kind of personal.
Yeah, no, I put my face in cold water every morning.
What's the most used app on your phone?
Oh, X.
Lease it or flip it?
Lease it.
Harder to manage, tenants or contractors?
They both can be difficult. I'm going to say tenants.
What's your biggest pet peeve in business?
People that just don't give an answer.
What's one word that you would use to describe yourself? Oh, wait. Check that. What's one word people would use to describe you?
Genuine.
I agree with that. Lastly, what's the word hustle mean to you in business?
Just working as hard as you can for other people.
Thank you so much, Matt. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us on the Homegrown Hustle. Thank you again, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
taking the time. You guys run an awesome business out here. Retail powerhouse, literally part of the company that built Arbor Lakes as I know it. I didn't realize that until we were in the conversation, but thank you for that. It's awesome. I think the entire Twin Cities community thanks you for that. And feel free to check them out. Anything within the commercial real estate space in the northwest suburbs, it seems to kind of flow through them at one point in time anyway, so save yourself some time. As far as the episode goes, thanks for all the comments. Leave us a like, send us any questions that you might have. And until next time, keep hustling.
Are you dealing with pest or wildlife issues on your property? Call us at 763-328-0156 or scan the QR code to learn more.
Thanks again for joining us on Homegrown Hustle. Our local business community thrives because of the brilliant leaders right here in our backyard. And it's been an absolute privilege to provide them with a platform to share their invaluable expertise. Stay tuned for more insight, wisdom, and inspiration from our local business champions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Together, we'll continue to nurture and expand our homegrown success stories. Matt Eickman signing off until our next insightful episode.